Guess who's back? Back again. Michael's back. Tell a friend. That's right. Michael Caruso is back with another stupid The Gamer Pokemon list article. And he's back doing another entry in his series of 10 Pokemon that don't look like their type. I've already done 2 videos on other lists just like this with the 10 fighting types that don't make sense and then 10 electric types that don't make sense. And in my electric types video, I said, please, Michael, please keep making more. Make one for all 18 types. Just and please let each one be crazier and crazier than the last one. And I think he might have actually heard me, because there seemed to be like a trend that caused each individual Pokemon on each list to be there. Like on the fighting one, it seemed like he picked Pokemon with the mindset of, okay, a fighting type looks like Machamp. If a Pokemon doesn't look exactly like Machamp, then they can't be a fighting type. Hence why stuff like, Meditite and Cobalion, like stuff like that, which don't really look, or even Breloom of all things, since they don't look huge and super buff and whatnot, they can't be a fighting type. And then the electric type one, he just couldn't suspend his disbelief long enough to really understand how these Pokemon exist, let alone he seemed to not grasp how Pokemon work just as a concept. And this one seems to be like a kind of fusion of those with another weird added element that we'll get more into later. So today we'll be getting into Michael Caruso's 10 Dragon-type Pokemon that make no sense. Pokemon usually match their types, but not these, which is actually kind of funny because there's at least 2 on here that he admits do look like dragons, but there are other aspects of them that don't make sense. So it would have been better if you had said Pokemon usually makes sense with their typings, or just something along the lines of Pokemon usually makes sense, but these don't. But these 10 dragon types don't. Something like that. But instead, later on, whatever. It's a gamer staple to contradict themselves throughout, so let's move on. Dragon-type Pokemon are somewhat of a rarity in the Pokemon universe because they are more potent than the average type of creature. With such few designs, there are unfortunately a lot of them that don't precisely fit or look like a typical dragon. I don't know exactly what he probably left out a word there. There are unfortunately a lot of them that don't precisely fit the feel or look like a typical dragon, unless I'm reading that wrong. Precisely don't fit or look like a typical dragon. There's either a word added or a word missing. Either way, get an editor, the gamer, please. There's going to be even more weird misspellings and grammar issues throughout the entire article, like there always are in the gamer article. So please just hire an editor. It can't be that hard. This list will cover some Dragon-type Pokemon that make very little sense and have questionable biology within the franchise. We'll get to that. From Shelgon to Guzzlord, here are 10 Dragon-type Pokemon that make no sense. Okay, and as advertised, starting off with Shelgon. There are many Pokemon in the franchise that don't quite look like their typing, and this is one of the main offenders of that issue. Although its evolution, Salamence, does look like a dragon type, its two pre-evolutions just don't make the cut as scary dragons. Again, Michael is going on the assumption that, okay, Salamence is a dragon type. Rayquaza is a dragon type. And anything that is labeled a dragon that doesn't look exactly like Salamence isn't and can never be a dragon. I don't know what type you would want Bagon and Shelgon to be. It is definitely weird that they go through this weird metamorphosis phase. It's also kind of weird thing with like Pupitar as well. I don't really understand the through line of that. Like a weird little dinosaur looking thing goes into a cocoon, then comes out a bigger dinosaur. Dragons and dinosaurs never did that, but whatever. It's Pokemon. I'm able to suspend my disbelief long enough to just be like, hey, it's Pokemon. Get over it. But like, what type would you want Shelgon to be? He's an armored little ball. Like I don't know. He doesn't look like the typical dragon, but I feel I don't really know. It would be weird if he was a normal type or whatever, and then he evolved into a dragon flying. That just kind of wouldn't make sense to me. Bagon, of all things, definitely looks more like a dragon than anything else. Just look at that thing. But whatever. Shelgon is a Pokemon worth noting because it has no traits of a typical dragon from folklore. And Michael, again, every single time he says the word fans demand an answer or fans are confused or whatever, I'm going to insert Michael because fans aren't the people who question these things. It's only Michael. All true fans of Pokemon are able to just be like, hey, it's Pokemon. Get over it. Or I can accept this. Or like, don't think too much. It's Pokemon. So anyway, and Michael is quite confused when initially seeing it when they aren't aware of its more dragon-like evolution. Okay, so what he's saying is some people get confused by looking at this thing because they don't understand it evolves into a salamence. I don't know. I feel like most Pokemon fans wouldn't even know Shelgon exists because it's a middle form, and most middle forms are kind of forgotten about anyway. So anyone who knows about Shelgon should know it's a dragon type and know that it evolves into salamence. Unless you're just like showing some rando who doesn't know anything about Pokemon this thing, they might not know it's a dragon type. But anyone who actually knows that Shelgon, is Shelgon and it actually exists would already know it's the dragon type. So, moving on. Guzzlord. Okay. What type? Looking at this thing, this huge, scary beast, what type would you give that thing? Obviously, he's the dark type because he's black and super scary. But what other, are you surprised that this terrifying huge monster is a dragon type? It has a spiked tail, horns, claws, like it has all the things that people depict dragons having. Is it just because it's fat? Like that, dragons can't be fat apparently. Okay. Guzzlord is an Ultra Beast, and Michael has been trying to figure out its weird design for years. The most peculiar thing about this Pokemon is that its arms are coming out of its mouth and also seemingly multiple rows of teeth, leaving Michael dumbfounded as to how it's a dragon. Okay, so the hands coming out of its mouth just make it more terrifying. And who's to say that dragons can't have multiple rows of teeth? That seems very draconic. Like sharks have that. Some dinosaurs even had that. So what's so weird about that making it not a dragon? Also, it's an Ultra Beast. It's not supposed to make sense. You're not supposed to look at an Ultra Beast to be, oh yeah, I get that. Like, this is like the prime example of an Ultra Beast just not making any sense because it's an Ultra Beast, but at the same time, like, they kind of took that absurdity, they made a dark dragon type and said, okay, what kind of Ultra Beast can we make out of a dark dragon type? And this is what they came up with, and it's fantastic. There are very few things about this Pokemon that point towards it being a dragon type. So when Michael first learned of its unique typing, spoiler warning, Hydreigon is on this list. There's at least one other dragon dark type that you already mentioned later on in this list, so it doesn't have a unique typing and you knew that. Unless you thought that Hydreigon was pure dragon? Whatever. They were quite befuddled as to how it was the case. Perhaps through more Pokedex entries in the future, Michael will discover more about this creature, and his typing will finally make sense. Again, just like with the electric one, this guy insists there to be a room full of 900 NPCs that when you talk to every single one of them, will have like an encyclopedia article, like entire encyclopedia entry describing exactly why every single one of these Pokemon is the way they are. They want something in game telling you exactly why this thing is a dragon type. When instead I can just look at it and be, yeah, that's a dragon. It's big, ugly, and scary with horns and teeth. What more do you need? Also, just going off its Pokedex entries as they are, a lot of dragon type Pokedex entries talk about how they rampage through cities, or at least dragon looking things like Tyranitar and Gyarados even. They rampage through cities, they level mountains, they terrorize people. And then this thing straight up eats entire dimensions. if that's not if that's not what a dragon would do if it was an other dimensional alien, I don't know what it is. So, moving on. Goomy. So on face value, Goomy I think is the only one in this list that I would argue, sure, even some fans, if they're not like, if they stopped before Gen 6, I understand that. If they looked at this thing and you asked them, okay, what type would you give it? Some people might think it's bug type because the snail and other snail Pokemon are bug type, like Escavalier. Some might think it's water because it heavily revolves around gooey. It's like gooey skin. It lives in water. It evolves with rain. Like I could easily understand some people thinking it could be a different type than dragon. So I'll give you that. But then the how he explains it, I need to read. I'm gonna read the whole thing and just try to wrap my head around his reasoning here. Goomy is known as the weakest dragon type in existence, and that's no surprise just by looking at its lackluster appearance. It's a cute Pokemon, but otherwise it doesn't offer much in terms of its moveset or stats. With all of this being the case, Michael has wondered since Gen 6 how this creature ever became a dragon type, and if the developers messed up by not making it a normal type. A normal type. And this is not the first time. This is not going to be the last time on this list he's going to say a dragon type should be a normal type. Just because something is cute doesn't mean it has to be a normal type. Just because something is round and bubbly doesn't mean it has to be a normal type. Look at Meryl. Meryl is round. Meryl is cute. Meryl is not a normal type. Just for one example. It's like this guy doesn't understand literally anything about Pokemon. I'm not gonna like call him out as a Gen 1er, but I feel like he's at least has this weird preconceived notion about what Pokemon should be based solely on certain previous Pokemon. Like, because Jigglypuff is round and pink and cute, every other round and pink Pokemon has to be normal type. You cannot think this thing is a dragon. That's fine. I understand that completely. But to think that it's a normal type of all things, that baffles me. I cannot understand that. But let me finish this. Luckily, its final evolution makes it a bit more sense than the Pokemon itself, but it still confuses Michael as to how this little weakling became a dragon in the first place. That's just how all pseudo-legendaries are. Their final evolution might get a second typing, but as far as I know, the primary typing of every single pseudo-legendary stays consistent throughout the entire chain. The only arguable exception would be Tyranitar, who goes from rock ground with Pupitar into rock dark, but the primary typing of rock is still the same. So you wouldn't have Goodra be a dragon, pure dragon, but have Gumi be a different type. That wouldn't make sense. Mega Ampharos. Again, this one I could kind of understand. Just by looking at it, you might not expect it to be a dragon type. But this might be another one where I'm just going to read it all and then show you something to prove that this thing makes perfect sense as a dragon. The mega evolution of this fan favorite Pokemon left many, Michael, unhappy that it had gotten some love. What? The mega evolution of this fan favorite Pokemon left many fans happy. Sorry, I misread that completely. That it had gotten some love in Generation 6. It was still confusing, however, because its evolution looked less like a dragon than its original form. What? Mega Ampharos looks less like a dragon? Those horns on its head turned more into these things right here don't scream draconic to you. The gem is more pronounced. The hair, sure, it doesn't necessarily scream dragon per se, but it's the same basic design, just with hair and a little more pronounced features. How can it look less like a dragon when it's just kind of stuff added on to it? That doesn't make sense. Michael wondered if it should have been a fairy or psychic type instead, because that would have fit its appearance much better than its peculiar dragon typing. I bet you all the money in my bank account, he said specifically fairy or psychic, because the picture he took for this entry is pink. His shiny is pink. You're right. But why psychic? I can understand fairy. There are some, fluffy fairy types for sure. But psychic? Is it because Alakazam has a mustache and whatnot? So that means that all Pokemon with a lot of hair need to be psychic? That doesn't make sense. Let me just finish this and then tell you exactly why it makes sense that it's a dragon. It would be interesting to see Ampharos get a regional dragon-type form in the future that looks a little bit more sensible than its mega evolution. Okay, so again, just like with the previous two lists, he demands in the future for there to be regional variants of Pokemon to make them look more like the type they already are. When every single regional variant, to my knowledge, makes the Pokemon look more like a given type or a changed type. Like Galarian Zigzagoon looks more like a dark type. Galarian Muck, that makes them look more like a dark type. They're not going to change a Pokemon that's already electric or already fighting a dragon, whatever. They're not going to give it a new form to make it specifically to make it look more like a typing it already has, when 9 times out of 10, the type it already has makes perfect sense. But give me just a second, and I'm going to show you exactly why it makes perfect sense that Ampharos, of all things, gets a dragon type. Okay? Okay. Here we are on probably my favorite Pokemon website of all time, Bulbapedia. Bulbapedia is something that Michael needs to get acquainted with, because literally every single question he's had for all of the 2 previous articles and all of this one, every single question he's had can easily be fixed by just going to this website, reading the description of the Pokemon, looking at, like, they have literally an entire section dedicated to the origin of how the Pokemon was named and what it's based on. Specifically saying here, Mega Ampharos' dragon-type mane and slender body suggests it's based on a Chinese dragon. So no, Michael. Mega Ampharos doesn't look less like a dragon than its normal base Ampharos. That doesn't make sense. But let me tell you the real reason why Ampharos, of all things, became a dragon upon Mega evolving. Its Japanese name is Denryu. There's a couple different possible translations of that, but essentially what that translates to is Thunder Dragon or Lightning Dragon, or could be possibly translated as like Thunder King, which kind of hence why he's called Ampharos in English. So yes, Lightning Dragon. It's a pun on his Japanese name. I think it's hilarious. Maybe they could have gone a little more all out on him actually being a dragon. Sure, I'll give you that one. But when you say that his typing makes no sense, when it's a pun on his Japanese name, which he's had since Gen 2, that makes about as much sense as anything else to me. So let's move on. Tyrant. A Pokemon that's based on what many consider to be the original dragons in, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Most dragons have their general, structure and look ripped straight from a T-Rex. But no, Tyrant shouldn't be a dragon. Tyrant is a dinosaur Pokemon, and the reason that it makes no sense is that dragons and dinosaurs don't usually mix. Although dragons and dinosaurs can share some similar traits at times, they aren't quite the same in terms of biology or appearance. They're not the same, but dragons are inspired by dinosaurs. That's why they have such long necks, teeth, wings even from the pteranodons. Like, most dragons have their entire anatomy ripped straight from like a combination of different dinosaurs. Not every dinosaur needs to be dragon, but it makes complete sense that a fossil Pokemon based on the Tyrannosaurus Rex could and should be dragon. But no, it doesn't end there. This Pokemon's typing left Michael wondering why it hadn't been given a ground or normal typing instead of this weird and questionable dragon type. Normal. Again, for some stupid reason, Michael insists that this dragon type Pokemon should be normal of all things. Not fighting, or even steel, or dark. Normal. I understand ground, although rock ground is a little overdone. It doesn't really fit him at all. Or even fire for whatever reason. Like, no, normal. He's not even like super cute or like super. He doesn't even have many traits that other normal types have. He's a T Rex. Like, is it because he's small? Other small things. Not every small thing has to be a normal type. That's the second time this list that he wanted something to be a normal type for no reason. Okay. Perhaps this Pokemon will make no sense in its typing forever. No, it makes complete sense. The rock is because it's a fossil. Dragon is because dragons get their appearance from dinosaurs. It's as simple as that. Moving on. Kyurem. I don't even know how you pronounce Kyurem. Kyurem. I always say Kyurem, but other people pronounce it differently. I'll just say Kyurem. Kyurem is a fascinating creature, and it also happens to be one of the most powerful legendary Pokemon in all of Gen 5. Actually, in its black and white form, is actually one of the most powerful legendaries. Period. But you're right, in Gen 5 as well. Kyurem is able to fuse with two other legendary Pokemon, Reshiram and Zekrom, and what Michael doesn't understand about this creature is why it can't fuse with lots of other Pokemon as well. Okay, so I have so much I need to say, but I'm going to read the second paragraph. It'll make even less sense, and then I'll explain everything. Unlike other Pokemon on this list, this creature's typing isn't the issue. Even though you said at top, Pokemon usually don't match their typings. Pokemon usually match their typings, but these don't. Okay, sure. Sure. But you said that this thing does match the typing, so that's irrelevant. Whatever. It's the very weird ability that allows it to fuse that makes no sense and has confused Michael for years. Hopefully, its fusion ability will be explained in the future because right now, this dragon type makes almost no sense. I didn't misspeak there. He didn't say almost 0 cents or almost no sense. He said almost 0 cents. Probably it's supposed to be a zero or no, and he just mistyped it. But still, get a proofreader or an editor or something. It shouldn't be that hard just to proofread it. Whatever. So, his qualm with this Pokemon is the fact that it can fuse with Reshiram and Zekrom, but it can't fuse with any other Pokemon. And he wants a game in the future to explain why this is the case. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here's the problem with this logic. So, in black and white, the legend goes that Reshiram and Zekrom used to be one singular Pokemon that split into two after two ruling brothers got into an argument and their ideals clashed. So these two Pokemon split, and Kyurem essentially is like the husk of what the former dragon used to be. So, in Black and White 2, the game that explains Kyurem's fusion ability, Getsus and Colorest, create this device called the DNA splicers that allows Kyurem to more or less fuse back with Reshiram and Zekrom. It's not a perfect fusion because it's not all three together like it originally was. I honestly really wish there was a game in the future that did actually go into what the original fusion of all three of these was, because really Kyurem wasn't even part of the original fusion. It was just kind of what was left after Reshiram and Zekrom specifically broke up. But regardless, there's a device that allows Zekrom and Kyurem, and then Reshiram and Kyurem to fuse individually. They all used to be one Pokemon, so now there's at least like so their DNA is so close that they're able to be fused together. Kyurem didn't used to be literally connected, like physically connected to any other Pokemon. It's only able to fuse with Reshiram and Zekrom because they used to be one singular Pokemon. It wouldn't make sense for Reshiram to fuse with Pikachu because him and Pikachu didn't used to be the same thing. And there is literally already a game explaining how this took place. So if you had just played the game, I think you just didn't even play the video game you're trying to criticize right now. Like what? Whatever. That one in particular just irks me so much. But moving on, Alolan Exeggutor. On literally every single list like this on the Gamer, where it's like 10 or 15 or however many Pokemon that don't make sense with their typings, or even just don't make sense, period. Well, Alolan Exeggutor is on those lists. I'm not even going to read this since I've probably already read this in a previous article before. Or it's the content of what he says is very similar to every other one like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and debunk why this Pokemon actually, why his Dragon type actually does make sense. So again, Bulbapedia. This is Exeggutor's page. Okay, so there are a couple of explanations as to why Alolan Exeggutor is a Dragon type. First, there's a dragon in mythology, I think it's Chinese or Japanese mythology, called Koka. And Exeggutor is the coconut Pokemon. So it would make sense that if there could be a pun on Koka being a dragon and the coconut Pokemon therefore being a dragon type. I feel like that one might be a little bit of a stretch, but that is still one reason why. The more pressing reason is that the genus of palm trees is called Dracana, or dragon tree, if taken super literally. So just like with Ampharos, it's given a dragon type based on a pun that's been around since its introduction. Or the third possibility, which I'm just spitballing here, maybe they just wanted to exaggerate Exeggutor's features and just thought the dragon typing would be funny. It could be that simple. So just because you look at Alolan Exeggutor and don't immediately think, that looks like Salamence, or that doesn't look like Rayquaza, therefore it can't be a dragon. Just because it doesn't scream dragon type doesn't mean it makes zero sense that it's a dragon. The reason it's a dragon type is based on puns of its origin. So I got that out of the way. If there's ever another list like this in the future, I'll just cite this video or make similar comments. Applin, another Pokemon whose typing is based on a pun. It's a worm in an apple. A worm. A worm, WYRM, is a either like type of dragon or like related to dragons. And they took the word worm, WROM, who is like, you know, a wives' tale that they're found in rotten apples, and took that pun and made it a worm, WYRM, and put that in an apple. They even drew like little teeth on the apple part. It's not that hard to understand. But clearly Michael doesn't understand, so let's find out why he has a problem with this one. Michael was extremely confused when this Pokemon was revealed in Generation 8. It doesn't look anything like a dragon. It is, in fact, just a tiny apple. Yeah, a tiny apple with a worm inside of it, but whatever. Its two evolutions also don't make any sense either, but at least they are much more durable compared to Applin, and it's apparently a dragon type. What does that even mean, more durable? Wait, when has there been a thing for dragons to be super beefy? Also, Flapple is pretty frail. Appleton is pretty beefy, mainly because it's ability thick fat. But I mean, yeah, it would make sense for stuff to evolve and get stronger. Like that, I don't know. That phrasing doesn't make sense to me. Whatever. It's decisions like this that makes Michael question what Game Freak is thinking while designing new Pokemon. And again, I already explained exactly what they were thinking. It's a worm, WYRM, living in an apple. They thought that was a funny pun. They ran with it. Okay, moving on. Mega Sceptile. Again, 3 dragon grasses in a row. Weird. And I don't really understand why you don't think this thing looks like a dragon, especially since Sceptile's base form is already sometimes confused as a dragon as it is. So they just kind of took one step forward and actually made him a dragon. Okay. Mega Sceptile is a strong Pokemon, and fans were glad to see this Gen 3 starter get some love in the Hoenn remakes. Even with how much fans love this Pokemon, Michael still questions its weird typing because it looks nothing like a dragon. Regular Sceptile looks a lot like a dragon, more than Ampharos does, which you already complained about. Whatever. A better secondary typing for this Mega Evolution would have been Psychic or Dark because of the fierce look that Sceptile usually puts on during a Pokemon battle. So I understand Dark in that reasoning, because Dark types are usually pretty scary or whatever. But Psychic? Why does Psychic insinuate fierceness? If anything, if I were to think of the one type in Pokemon that would insinuate fierceness, either Dark or better yet, Dragon would come to mind. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm the only one in the world that thinks that dragons are fierce, but Psychic does not, probably not even the 4th or 5th one to come to mind when I think of a fierce typing. Regardless of the weird typing, Mega Sceptile fans still happy to see a new form of this favorite grass type starter. Not Mega Sceptile fans are still happy. It's Mega Sceptile fans still happy. Whatever. I literally can't understand his reasoning sometimes. You know, you don't have to make 10 things. You can, if you're reaching this hard to try to say that Mega Sceptile doesn't look like a dragon, you're reaching so hard to say that Guzzlord doesn't look like a dragon. I can understand completely Ampharos and even Applin to an extent and Exeggutor. But saying that Sceptile and Kyurem don't make sense as dragons? Come on. Like, just look at that thing. That is a dragon, but whatever. Moving on to the very last one, Hydreigon. One already teased earlier, but this entry makes me think that he's literally never seen Pokemon before. Like, it legitimately makes me believe that he's never played a single Pokemon game in his life. He's not even a Gen 1er. Because if he was, he would know why this thing makes sense, and I'll get into in a second. I honestly think that Michael Caruso was just like an intern one day at the Gamer, and they needed to meet their quota of 16 Pokemon articles because there's so many Pokemon articles in any given day, and they're running low. They're running short one day, or they recently fired somebody who wrote a lot of Pokemon articles. They just kind of thrust this guy in front of in front of a computer, told him to make 6 different Pokemon articles that day. So he just like looked at a Pokedex and was like, okay, these things don't, I don't know, these things don't make sense, and then just kind of wrote crap about it. That's literally the only explanation as to how any of this makes sense. So let me read this. This Pokemon looks precisely like a dragon should, and in terms of the design, Game Freak hit the nail right on the head. However, Hydreigon is still a bizarre creature because it grows from having 1 head in its first evolution to 2 in its second form, and then 3 heads in its final evolution. Michael could forgive this Pokemon if it originally had multiple heads. However, the biology of sprouting heads when it evolves makes very little sense for most Michael that are interested in the biology of a Pokemon. This issue probably wouldn't be explained in the future. However, Michael would love if they got at least a bit more information about this 3-headed monster and how it grows extra heads. Since the days of Gen 1, a Pokemon evolving and growing a new head has been a thing. It's honestly been a pretty annoying thing and kind of lazy thing, but it's been there. Dodrio existed back in Generation 1. It started with 2 heads, it grew a third. It's Does it ever explain how Dodrio grew a third head? No, it doesn't have to because Pokemon. And with Hydreigon specifically, it's not even like 3 heads like people think. Like you might think, like with Dodu into Dodrio, even Dino into Xylus, it literally like it's 1 head split into 2. Here, it has like 1 head, and then its 2 hands look like heads. They probably do think for themselves, but like they don't look like Hydreigon's head. And I understand completely wanting to be, super involved in the biology of certain Pokemon. That makes complete sense. I'm definitely not, knocking you for that at all. I appreciate fans wanting to learn more about these creatures, but if you're going to try to compare stuff that happens in Pokemon to stuff that happens in real life and say, that can't happen in real life, so this Pokemon makes no sense, get a new hobby. Pokemon is not for you. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. Saying that animals can't grow 2 heads in real life, even though there are stories of turtles and other lizards and stuff growing multiple heads, but it's not, it's not the norm, so I get what he's going for, but like, it's something can happen in Pokemon that doesn't happen in real life, and honestly, that's preferred. It would be kind of boring if every single Pokemon looked and acted exactly like the creature they're based on. So, anyway, what do you guys think about all this? Are there any dragon-type Pokemon that you think don't look like dragons? Are there any on this list that you think I didn't really make a strong enough point for actually being a dragon type? Are there any other Pokemon of other types that you think don't really make sense? Leave all that down below. And again, Michael, please keep making more of these videos. Keep making more of these articles. I love making these videos.